which are cause numbers 23C1745 and 1746. And you are Mr. Nutt here with Mr. Wilbon and Mr. Radford, your attorneys. Earlier, the defendant you've entered pleas of guilty already in these cases, correct?
Yes.
In each case.
Yes, sir.
And cause number 23CR1745, the defendant was indicted on October 18th of 2023 for the second degree felony of manslaughter by vehicle. And in 23CR1746, he was indicted for the second degree felony of accident causing death. Each of these, the victim is the same individual, Christian Michael Sykes, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Pre-sentence report has been prepared in these cases. Have the parties had an opportunity to review them?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
This information, is there any changes or corrections that need to be made?
No, Your Honor.
Now, let me get this straight because it's not in the jacket here. The defendant entered a plea on 1745. He didn't enter a plea on 1746?
He entered on both, Judge.
Okay, where's probation office?
We don't have,
Okay,
this was done by Margaret Carthen, who's usually our liaison, but she did the pre-sentence report.
okay,
But there's,
okay.
this is a split sentence, Judge. And on one case, which is cause number 1746, I think 14406, yeah. We are doing a 3-year prison term. And then on the other case, we're doing a 10 years deferred probation with certain conditions.
And these sentences are to run concurrently?
Yes, sir.
Right, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so once again, the pre-sentence report is presented to the court. I've reviewed it and there are no objections by either party.
That's correct, Judge.
No, sir.
And it's made a part of the record for all purposes. All right. Just a summary from each side on this. I think I know where this is headed for what you want, but I just want statements, summary from either party as to how this plan is in the best interest of justice for all concerned. Go ahead.
Judge, this is one that we've both struggled over and talked to each other multiple times on this case to try to find and fashion out a sentence that would reflect the seriousness of this, but also allow this young man to have a chance at his life. I've spoken with the family. We've had meetings on it and talked to them about this offer. Let them think about it over the weekend before we actually formally made the offer. They came back and said that this was acceptable to the family, the victim. This is kind of a strange circumstance because everybody in this community kind of knows everybody in this community, and they know of this young man and know his family. And so
This community
Hampshire Finette, I'm sorry, Judge, it's just going through my brain for a minute. But this is something that we fashioned after looking at the circumstances and looking at this young man's past history and talking to the family. And again, what they're agreeable with this. And it's not the best of all the worlds that they would like to have, but it is something that they think would reflect the seriousness of this. And at the end of this, they also, just to let the court know, they want to make an allocution at the end of the sentence.
Go ahead, defense.
You know, we concur with what Mr. Laird said. I would add additionally that this conduct, best I can determine, is completely out of character. No prior history of anything. What we did also, Judge, in light of the law change after this incident happened, there's agreed to pay child support, but also in waiving it goes back to after.
Tell me a little bit about the deceased Christian Sykes, date of birth 77. So,
Yes, sir.
So he was in his 40s.
Yes, sir.
Who else was in the vehicle other than Mr. Sykes in that vehicle?
His son was in that vehicle.
Was how old?
I think 4. I think he was 4
Any
years old.
injuries for that child?
No, Your Honor, they're minor stuff that didn't require any major treatment. Otherwise, there would have been more charges filed.
Anything you would like to add, Mr. Dunham? This court is inclined to follow this agreement. Anything you want to say? Like you regret what happened here? And it seems to be inferred in here, but your version is one sentence long. It's just not a lot of.
Judge, I don't know. He just said he wanted to say something to the family, but he's not going to get to it on the allocution because he won't be allowed to speak. So I don't know if his lawyers want him to say now.
Right now. But to me, the family, sometimes victims, relatives, the survivors are put in a bad spot here, much less, and so are you, everybody involved here. And it's just, this is happening too often. This court's been doing this long enough. And in the last couple of years, this is the third situation I can recall now in just 2 years where people were left to die when people who were involved in an accident flee. And there's just a missing element of just human compassion. The law is a humanitarian type of law. You are required when you're involved in an accident to help, not leave, help folks who may be injured in the event. Here, you didn't. You're not the first but I know what juries do, and they're pretty severe in holding defendants responsible in a situation like this. According to your version here, that's in the pre-sentence report, you had consumed too much alcohol, and as a result, you got scared and left the scene of the accident, and then one person died, and there was a child, could have died, and those are difficult situations for everybody involved, but this court always has a hard time figuring out why humanitarian compassion element that nature put us in, you have to compete with fear and not wanting to be around and to leave, which doesn't change anything except increases a burden that everyone is going to have to deal with. And then the question becomes, could a life have been saved by administering first aid until safety authorities, emergency authorities were able to reach the scene? And a death of a human is not reversible. And um, anything you want to add?
Think about it every day, keeping mistake. Sorry to the family. Wish I could undo this and make it right somehow. You know, I can't, and I want to help however I can, carrying on, however that looks like. I would be right.
But they want their life back. That family wants that life back. You can't do that. Okay. That's the downside on all of this. And that's why, especially during this time, this season where most accidents occur during holiday season, everybody needs to be reminded that this can happen anytime, at any time, and that they're responsible. When we are on the road, we are responsible not only for ourselves, our actions, but everybody else. We have a pact, an agreement that we will be responsible in our maintenance of a vehicle and operation of it in a sober and lawful manner. Vehicle is nothing more than a 4,000-pound missile. It does terrible tissue damage to humans when struck and takes lives. So there needs to be always a reminder of life, that or the taking of a life in motor vehicles when we're driving is just a clock tick away from that. So we have to operate responsibly. All right. Anything else? I'm going to follow these agreements and find Mr. Dunham, you have pleaded guilty in each of these cases. And again, in 23 CR 1745, the second degree felony of manslaughter, which carries with it up to 20 years in prison. And in 23 CR 1746, the second degree felony as well of accident involving death. Essentially, the two parts of these charges. One is by causing the death in a reckless manner of an individual by operating your vehicle on a public road in excess of 100 miles an hour and striking the vehicle, which caused it to flip and causing the driver to be ejected and died. And in the second case, accident involving death, when there is an accident, parties involved in accidents have a responsibility under Texas law to not leave the scene of an accident before giving name, address, registration, and rendering reasonable assistance to other parties when it's apparent they are in need of medical treatment. So those are the parts here: reckless misuse of your vehicle and driving irresponsibly, and then fleeing the scene after you had a duty to stay and render aid. In each of these cases, you have pleaded guilty voluntarily. These are second degree felonies, which carry with it up to 20 years in prison. You were mentally competent to enter these pleas of guilty. There is sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea in each case from State's Exhibit 1 that was admitted at the plea hearing to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. In 23 CR 1745, the manslaughter, even though there is sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea, to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, the court is deferring any finding of guilt in this case, correct? And placing you on deferred or unadjudicated probation for 10 years. There will be terms and conditions of probation which are normal and customary for this type of offense. The probation officer will go over these with you. You will sign these and be responsible for following the requirements, which also include participation in a 12-step program or tantamount program directed for dealing with intoxication, driving while intoxicating, operating motor vehicles irresponsibly, and there will be an analysis by the probation office as to exactly what type of program that will be required under these circumstances that the court will review and approve. You will complete a moral reclamation therapy program, which is a program that many probationers are required to complete. And essentially, it is a program which helps people make the correct decisions during the times of stress. And yes, we can all use something like that, but you are required to complete that as a condition. There will be other conditions of probation.
Just part of the agreement was the Jefferson County Drug Intervention Program when he gets out.
Well, I hadn't gotten to that one.
That's right.
You're going to, on this other case, you're going to be sentenced to imprisonment for a term. When that is completed, then there is what we call JCDI, the Jefferson County Drug Intervention Program, which you must complete. If you fail to complete any of these terms and conditions of probation in this deferred probation order, your probation could be revoked. You could then be found guilty and sentenced to no less than 2, no more than 20 years confinement in prison. Do you understand?
And since this is outside the child support statute that they have enacted now, we're going to ask that it be placed in the probation order that he pay child support based upon the child support calculations as directed by the family code.
Anything from the defense on that?
That's exactly right, John.
And we
Okay, is this going to be under Part 27 restitution, or is restitution under 27 to the victim family to compensate for property damage, monetary loss, or medical expenses sustained as a direct result? Is that separate?
That's separate.
That's separate.
Yes, sir.
Where is the?
I don't know if there is one on there, Judge.
I'll examine it.
If there's a blank, we can add a blank to it at the bottom and just write in percent to the family
Okay,
code.
what is it the state is asking for in the wording?
That the defendant, upon completion of prison sentence, pay child support
In an amount of
in an
what?
amount direct as established by the Texas Family Code.
Pursuant to the child support guidelines.
But there's a guideline set in the family code, and it's we just can't determine because he's going to lose his job when he goes to prison. When he comes out, we've got to figure out what that is. And it's going to be, I think it's 20% after certain expenses that's listed in the family code for one child. And that's what he'll be paying of his net. So we can't put what that is yet. is what it is.
In an amount, determined by what?
The child support guidelines of the Texas Family Code.
Right. Condition 31 of this probation order. Defendant shall pay child support to the victim's family in an amount to be determined by the child support guidelines of the Texas Family Code. What else do you want me to add on this provision?
All of that is fine. I think leaving it generic probably is the best way to do it. It's all fine and good.
You understand the requirements that you're going to have, sir, as far as this set of orders in this case involving your deferred or unadjudicated probation for 10 years for this manslaughter charge.
Yes, sir.
The probation officer will review these with you and you can sign them and be held accountable. Understand? Please. Right out. Leave it alone. Say. Paper clip. Try to write it in paper clip.
I can correct that for you, Judge. Get that, see?
Are you in here? Let me go look in the back.
I can correct it. I can correct it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll make that correction for you, Judge.
Paper, it's small, but paper clip always. Now. Anything else on 1745? If nothing, on 23 CR 1746. In that case, Mr. Dunham, you had pleaded guilty voluntarily. You are mentally competent to do so. You understand and appreciate the consequences of pleading guilty. There's sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea from State's Exhibit 1 admitted. In that case, to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I now find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. In that second degree of the offense called accident involving death, I am following this agreement. You are hereby sentenced to confinement in the institution of division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 3 years. And this sentence will run concurrently with the previous deferred or unadjudicated probation sentence in the 1745 matter. Do you understand what has happened here today, sir?
Yes, sir.
Anything else to add for the record for these cases?
No, Your Honor.
No, you're.
All right, there's something else?
There's some allocutions, Jeff.
If I can, some more folks want to speak.
Say again. We're fine here.
Dr. Marvin, podium. Dr. Yeah. Yes, I will tell me the other. Just right over the podium.
All right, and would you please identify yourselves? I see there are three of you.
Mine's Terrence Sykes. Christian's sister.
You were the
Christian's
deceased sister, Miss Sykes, and
I'm sleeping on
the two ladies behind you,
I'm Amy Salino, I'm Christian's wife.
the spouse of the deceased,
Hannah Talino, his stepdaughter.
and the daughter. Oh, go ahead.
I have spent months trying to write out what I would want to say. Yeah, been completely unable to put it all into words. I thought and I could write volumes of stories and memories and tell you all of the amazing things about Christian and who he was. He was an amazing son, brother, uncle, father, husband. Let me tell you one of the things that I've thought about, and it's just telling you the week we had planned. It was actually an incredibly special week in our family. My daughter Grace was moving into her dorm at A&M on the Friday after he was killed. That Thursday was my 44th birthday. And Christian and I and my mom and Grace all had plans to drive up to College Station the night before and then move Grace into her dorm room on Friday. Spend the day getting her ready. And instead, we spent the week planning a funeral. And because you still have to move into a dorm room, I drove up. Me and my best friend and her daughter drove Grace's things and dropped them in her dorm room and turned around and came home to have a funeral. The next day to get up for me and Grace to drive back to College Station to actually put her dorm room together. And I had to leave her that day, the day after his funeral, so she could start class at A&M the next morning. If you know anything about Grace, that was a dream that she had had. You went to school with her. Your friend's younger brother dated her through high school. It was a dream that she had most of her life, and she worked and worked and worked to get that. And she was so excited. In that first year of her time at A&M, it was so hard. It was hard on her. And Christian was everything to her. Her father wasn't there for her, but Christian was. Christian was the uncle that would send me a text saying, I rescued Grace from daycare, we're going fishing. He was the uncle that brought her a kayak for her 5th birthday to teach her to kayak in the back pond so she could go fishing with him. He was the uncle that did everything. He was the brother that was there for me for everything. And he didn't do things for me. He taught me how to do them. And he did things with me. And he was a son that showed up anytime his mother or father needed. We lost our sister when we were younger to cancer. And Christian was by her side. He was the person who gave to everyone. as Judge Stevens was talking about how we all need to help other people. That was the definition of who Christian was. Christian helped everyone. He was the guy that would pull over to change your tire. He was the guy that gave so much blood that after he died and I went in to start giving, they came to talk to me because they knew who I was, because Christian spent so much time giving blood that they even knew my nephew's name and asked how he was doing because he spent so much time giving and doing for other people. I could go on, go on. But I can't be angry. I can't carry any more anger. I can't. I know that as part of your agreement, it was asked that you not contact the family. And I know that was a wish that Amy and Hannah have had. But I invite you to talk to me. You should learn about who Christian was, because I think what you lacked in character the night of the accident, you could learn from learning about who Christian was. And I know your mother, and she's a good lady, so I know that she raised you to be better than you were that night. I know that's there. I know you have that foundation. And I invite you to reach out to me and ask questions. Learn about him. Our lives will be connected for the rest of our lives because you got behind the wheel that night. Please take the time to learn about what you took and who he was so that you can grow and take the rest of your life to be more like him. Please. Thank you.
I've written my speech on my phone. I've seen videos on social media of people reading letters like this and forth, but I never imagined that I would be writing one myself, and especially not at 19 years old, and especially not for someone that I love so deeply. Christian Michael Sykes, or Crick as we called him, was my stepfather, but he was more than that. He was the most generous, trusting, and loving person I've ever known. Crick has such an impact on my life that I now find myself looking for parts of him in every new friendship I form, just to make sure that I'm surrounding myself with people like him. When I was 16, I was getting ready for bed at my dad's house in Austin when I got a call from my grandfather. He was so flustered that I couldn't understand what he was trying to say at first. He asked to speak to my dad, and when I finally was told, I sat on my bed repeating the words in my head. There was an accident, Judah's in the hospital, and I'm going to drive you back right now. 20 minutes later, I was in the car, and by then I already knew what Crick's name had to come with. At midnight, we pulled out of the gas station, and I cried in the passenger seat knowing I had just been told that Crick had been killed. For 4 hours, I sat in that car on the way to a house that could never feel like a home again. When I arrived, I walked into my mom and Crick's bedroom and saw my 5-year-old brother lying on Crick's side of the bed in a hospital gown. His hair was a tangled mess, his arms were scratched and bruised from his shoulders to his fingertips, and his face was flushed. And all I could do was lay next to him and hold him, thanking God that he was still with us, but at the same time asking why Crick wasn't. The day after the accident, I learned that someone I had never heard of left my family at the scene of an accident he caused so he wouldn't get caught. 4 days after, I turned 17 and opened birthday gifts from Crick without him. Weeks after, the world kept moving while I remained stuck on August 12th. Months after, I was hospitalized for my mental state. That December, we had a birthday party for someone who was no longer alive to celebrate it. A little over half a year after, I graduated high school without him. And a year passed and nothing had changed. Now, 2 years later, I can finally stand here and say everything I've been carrying with me since the day he died. Because the truth is, this loss isn't over. A few years from now, I'll graduate college without him. One day I'll get married without him. I'll raise his grandchildren without him. I'll watch my mother grow up without him, and I'll watch Jude grow up without him. And all of that is because of you. You, someone whose name is now carved into my memory. Someone who went to my school. Someone who knew my classmates. And someone who had enough mutual friends with me on Snapchat to send me a friend request. But you are also the same someone who took my stepfather from my life. And that is how I'll remember you for the rest of mine. And I want you to remember every single word that was said to you today for the rest of yours, because you did this.
Okay.
I took this picture. I took this picture about 2 weeks before the accident, and I want to show the people that can't be here that were most affected by this. Thought about what I wanted to say if I ever had this opportunity for over 2 years. And so many words have gone through my head. And now that I have the opportunity and tried to write it all out, I have no idea where to start. Or if there's anything that I could even say to express how devastating this experience has been to me, to my children, to all of Christian's family, and to all the people who loved him. And there were a lot of people who loved him. There are no words, although Hannah did a pretty good job, to explain the shock of being told that your husband's no longer alive. What it's like to try to process how that is possible, what it means, what you do next. It was a full 24 hours. Numerous phone calls and face-to-face meetings with various law enforcement personnel before I actually understood that my husband didn't die in an accident. My husband was killed because of somebody's choices. The reality of my life every single night for the last 2.5 years is to picture my husband lying on the side of the road and to hear my baby crying for his daddy. And to ache because I wasn't there. That's what's in my head. At night when I try to sleep, in the day when I try to teach my students, when I go home and try to hug my children, that's what's in my head now. So here's what I know. I know that Christian Sykes is a good man, made mistakes, and he has faults. But like Hannah said, he was a helper. He was the guy that everyone called, everyone. He was the guy that knew how to fix everything. And if he didn't, he would figure it out. He cared about the world. He cared about human beings. He cared about animals. He cared about the future. He wanted to make the world a better place. And I don't think he ever realized how much he did. He was a man who fixed people's cars and held open doors. But more than that, he was generous with his time, his knowledge, his possessions, And even more importantly, he treated people with respect. It was something that I always noticed about him long before we were a couple. He acknowledged the people that society ignores. He saw them and he set that example to others. And at his funeral, the custodian from my school came and I thanked him and told him he didn't have to be there. And all he said was, he always shook my hand. And that explains so much to me. Christian loved his niece immensely and unconditionally. He brought his stepdaughter into his life wholeheartedly and loved her completely. He had godchildren who he cared about so deeply. But becoming a father brought out a tenderness and a devotion that I can't describe. The love he and Jude had for each other was so deep, so pure, and so beautiful. They were truly each other's best friends. When Christian was taken out of all of these kids' lives, that loss was so huge. It affected them so much more deeply than I have the right or the words to express. You have no idea how much damage that caused. I wanted to talk about Christian as a husband. I wanted you to know all that was taken from me in that way, but I can't. It is too personal and too special, and I will not dirty it by talking about it here. But what I can say is that from the time that Christian and I started dating until the day he died, I felt more seen, more loved, and more understood than at any other time in my life, and I cannot imagine that I will ever find that again. There's so much more. I considered telling you as many specific stories about Christian as I could. I thought about giving a list of the facts of his life. I thought about trying to list as many people he loved and who loved him as I could. But none of that seems to matter. But what I do need to say now is that I had to explain to a 7-year-old this past Friday what was going on. I had to tell him why his mother and his sister had been so emotional. I had to try to explain a court system that I don't understand and what was happening today. And I asked him if there was anything that he wanted to say. He said he just wanted to know why we can't all be a happy family, all 4 of us together again. I'm not sure if I will ever forgive you. I'm not sure if you deserve it, but I will try. It's not for you. It's because I only have so much energy to give. And I want all of it to go to something good. I want it to go to loving my babies, my husband, my family, my friends, my students. I'm not going to waste any of that energy on anything negative. That said, I truly hope that you have learned something, that you do better, that you find a way to do something really good in this world. Too much good has been taken out of it by your choices. And I truly hope that one day you have an opportunity to give some of it back. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks, Jeff. Anything else? Sure. Thank you. All right. Obviously underscores the tragedy that we deal with, the tragedies that we deal with here in this courtroom often, especially the difficulties we have to deal with when someone is operating a motor vehicle irresponsibly. And lives, when they're lost, it's obvious that their lives touch so many other people, loved ones, friends, and others. So what can we say, since we can't bring a life that is lost back, is to drive responsibly because lives depend upon it. All right. Anything else to add in this case by any of the parties? All right. Then, Mr. Dunham, you're taken into custody to begin the service of your sentence. We are in recess on this case. This is where all the activity is. What's going on outside? Nothing?
Nothing.
You need to be in here when we call your name. So that, because if you don't answer, your bond can be revoked and then you get taken into custody, which is not the way to handle things. Have you talked to, your attorney?
I have not seen him today.
Okay. I don't think, well, I have a note that says he's on jury duty this week. I just got this, note and, huh? I thought you were on jury duty.
I am judge at 1 o'clock.
Okay. This one is trial.
It's still.
This is trial?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. All right, if we have to try it, you're gonna talk to the judge about missing jury duty or anything? I
Well,
mean, this is
Judge,
aggravated as sexual assault of a child. That's gotta take precedence. And it's 1,000 days old. I'm not sure where we're gonna be on this. Because I got some older ones.
I mean, I'm not trying to be wise guy, Judge, but
Uh,
the
Elvin, let's